leave things plain is key. Yeah.
No, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Congratulations. You have just found another meta egg, and this one is actually starting on time. Today we are here with DCP, the legendary David Charles Plate, to talk about the meta aspects of the movie Hot Tub Time Machine 2010. How are you doing, David?
Good. Yeah, that was the year we made contact.
Oh, touche. See, yeah. I think it's weird because I know that it feels like this movie was not made complete until this year.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So I was thinking about like when I was walking the dog today and kind of like reminiscing about the fact that like there was all of these other years where it's like meaning wasn't totally known yet. And that was like just a mind trip. But you have a weird theory about this movie, correct?
Yeah. So do you.
I actually am in agreement with this one because it kind of feels like there's all this other stuff that goes with it, like The Last President and Barron Trump and Biff Tannen, but it's pretty poignant. Yeah, like I can't deny.
Yeah, so it was probably pronouncing his last name wrong, but Michael Sharratt. You know,
Michael Scott.
Yeah, okay. In our sync community, when we did one of the sync cabins in Idaho, the whole time he was like he wanted to watch Hot Tub Time Machine as a group because he felt like it had a lot of meat to it. And now I feel like we're kind of at a place where it's way more so than at the time. Like you said, you know, in so many words, like however you said it, but things have really come to fruition like recently with what the Hot Tub Time Machine is actually speaking to. So it has that feeling like it itself is another instance where you have like kind of this movie from the future about the past, and like Back to the Future, like you know, especially there's so much to get into. Where do you want to start?
So, well, I mean, it's kind of like I say, like it doesn't work the same way with the first Trump presidency. There's more of like a healing timeline element to this. Like although the Biff Tannen Back to the Future thing was happening, like Back to the Future Day was kind of like coinciding with the first Trump presidency. You get what I mean? There was that connection, but it seems like the hiccup was almost built in. Like Trump's lack of 4 years inside of the office creates this like charge of what and it all has to hinge around that squirrel. So please forgive me if I don't understand the total story of Peanut the squirrel. Explain Peanut to me.
Peanut was a viral squirrel, online viral, you know, not like disease vector, but you know, it was he was a TikTok squirrel, Instagram squirrel that was just loved by like a lot of people were into the squirrel, including like my cousin's fiance, who was devastated to find out what happened with that squirrel. So you know, the squirrel in like
this was a known squirrel. This was
yeah. So like in Hot Tub Time Machine, when Lou with the squirrel that disrupts the game, and he goes, "That I know that squirrel. That's a magic squirrel, right?" So he literally says that there's a squirrel on the play, right?
Right.
But so you know,
the
squirrel. You guys know it was like within a week of the election, you had a squirrel was euthanized by, you know, the government literally like went into these people's house, took their squirrel and killed it because it bit their finger. Meanwhile, everyone who's been following that squirrel knows it's a sweet squirrel with its owners. So you have some stranger going to your house. And so that's really triggering because it kind of feels like, you know, the end of the purge or something, where it's just like what the government is just going to go into somebody's house. So they say that it did shift the election a bit. I would say that there's bigger factors, including what Clear Choice was doing with Kennedy, that shifted the election more than most things. But the squirrel played a part, and this is a sync. And so this is what I really want to go into here. So, you know, you guys are probably familiar, because this was a viral video of the Karate Kid with Johnny and Danielson, right? So where Johnny is shown to not be the villain of the story. So it's like, who is the real villain of the story? And so, and what that speaks to is our predisposition to have a bias and not realize the degree that that bias is literally influencing all of our perceptions. And so the way that the Karate Kid is set up is such that, you know, this blonde kid who kind of looks like Hitler Youth or something, you know, like he's viewed as the bad guy. But in instance by instance, you can see where Daniel is actually provoking the whole situation, but we don't perceive it that way because the way that it's written. So there's videos of the people who from Cobra Kai speaking to this viral video of the Karate Kid, and it actually played into the plot of Cobra Kai, from my understanding. So I think you've seen the show maybe more than I have. I saw the first season. I didn't
know
go
about the same. I
but
know of it and watched like sporadic seasons throughout the run. But
was it the writer or the director or both that did Hot Tub Time Machine that did Cobra Kai?
I think it was the writers, what we found out when we talked about this earlier. Here, let's look into it. But I don't know if you explained or not that Johnny is in Hot Tub Time Machine.
So yeah, so this is the thing. There's so much to unpack here. So Johnny makes the bet with Lou on the football game, which is clearly like a play on what happened in Back to the Future 2 with Biff having the Gray's Almanac, right? Which is right. So they're betting on this game, and actually the girl who's in that scene in Hot Tub Time Machine, that's the girl who's with Johnny in Cobra Kai, if I'm not mistaken, one of his pairings, right? It's not the girl from Karate Kid. It's his girlfriend.
Oh, you mean the girlfriend that's in Hot Tub Time Machine is also intertwined with the whole Karate Kid thing?
Yeah. So they did that on. So they made no mistake. Like you can't argue that this isn't intentional. That he is playing Johnny. He's Johnny playing Johnny, right? So they even after the bet, after the whole thing plays out, Lou says of Johnny, that of whatever his name is in Hot Tub Time Machine, even though archetypally he is that character, he says he's not really such a bad guy. We got to talking afterwards, and I helped him with bets in the future, things to bet on in the future. So like in the past, in the future, in the past. But so that is the basis of what you're like. That's why The Karate Kid is such an amazing movie, is because it's a litmus test for the audience to determine who is the protagonist and who is not. Like who's who. The bet that they make is shifted by a squirrel running out on the field, and they say, what do they say?
Wait. What are we talking about? Sweep the leg, Johnny? Is it?
Yeah, sweep the leg, Johnny. Yeah.
Okay. I passed.
Right.
Okay, so are you reading this like I am? Cobra Kai, a Netflix series, and Hot Tub Time Machine, a 2010 comedy film, share a connection through their writers and actors. Here are the key points. Josh Held, the creator of Cobra Kai. Josh Held also wrote Hot Tub Time Machine, 2010. So we can tell that the guy is like a fucking 80s nut, right?
Yeah, big time. Yeah,
big time. This connection suggests that Held intentionally cast actors from Hot Tub Time Machine and Cobra Kai. William Zabka and Deoria Bard. In Hot Tub Time Machine, William Zabka, Johnny Lawrence, and Cobra Kai.
And the Karate Kid.
Right, and the Karate Kid, of course. And Deoria Bard play a married couple, Rick and Wendy.
Right.
In Cobra Kai, they portray Robbie Keenan's parents. So that must be
okay. I guess that's how. Yeah,
their husband and what they're not necessarily married, but they have a child. So it's like an alternate timeline.
Right. So here we have our meta egg, right below that. Yeah.
Right. Easter egg. The casting of Zabka and Bard in Cobra Kai can be seen as an Easter egg for fans of Hot Tub Time Machine. This nod to their previous collaboration adds a layer of depth to the Cobra Kai universe.
Right.
Coincidence or intentional reference. While some might consider this a coincidence, others argue that Held, as the writer of both projects, deliberately cast Zadka and Bard together to create this connection. Of course, this is the AI of Brave's browser. So
right. And so it's like a meta juxtaposition, because you also have Back to the Future 2 playing into it as well. Biff, from the writer of Back to the Future 2, is admittedly modeled after Donald Trump.
right.
So you have a bet, right, between, I don't, what was the, it was, it's so many movies at once, because it's also Indecent Proposal, right, where it's like, but instead of it being the wife, it's he's going to have to be with his friend. So like,
okay,
Blue and the other
I'll
guy,
allow
right?
it.
Right. I don't know. I think that came out in the 90s, though, not the 80s, but still, it's there.
Okay.
So yeah, so he says, when the squirrel shows up, it's squirrel on the play. When he says, I know that squirrel, that's a magic squirrel.
On the play.
The squirrel that changes the outcome of the game. So, first of all, really important about Hot Tub Time Machine, this is the same subtext as The Shining. So the argument is that Lou, at the beginning, when he's in the garage and he's trying to kill himself, the idea is that he did kill himself. So Kubrick's explanation, when asked about The Shining, beyond just what the book is, what he did with The Shining, is he says, this is a evil reincarnation cycle. So when you see Jack at the end of The Shining, you know, this is showing that it's some twisted thing where it's like he's always been the caretaker. Well, in Hot Tub Time Machine, Lou kills himself while listening to Home Sweet Home, right? And the very
no,
next,
it's not Home Sweet Home. It's
what is
I'm
it called?
coming home.
I'm Coming Home.
I guess
Right.
it is Home Sweet Home is the name of the title. I'm not sure, but it's the one, Poison, basically, right?
Right.
Because he's listening to Poison and he's drinking the Chernobyl drink,
Right.
and he's like revving the engine up until he like gets carbon monoxide poisoning or whatnot.
Right. Poison is the band that's playing at the lodge later, right? So
Right.
yeah, later in the past. So
And when he's like, he almost commits suicide again, like that's like his suicide song is I'm Coming Home or whatever.
right, it seems like he's in purgatory, like Jack was, or hell, or whatever. But it cuts directly from him, Lou killing himself,
like an
to
Anthony
these squirrels.
like time loop, like he's dying, so he's experiencing the whole the scenario of the Hot Tub Time Machine, like with the Chernobyl drink spilling into the time machine is like an Easter egg that he's really the time machine, like he's just having this condensed experience of time right before he dies, and everything else is just in his head. So like,
Right.
but the Easter egg of the squirrel is that, I mean, he's Jesus Christ, so he kind of like resurrects the dude, right?
Right. So it speaks to a humiliation ritual.
Right.
Oh,
Right
Nahadar is chiming in here. This is Amelia. She's contributed a lot to these ideas. So with Hot Tub Time Machine, huge fan of Hot Tub Time Machine. She says he knows he's in the wrong timeline. So like,
so wait, because like, hold on, because like Nick is a word. Okay, Nick is their friend, and the one friend is what's his face? JC.
John Cusack.
There, thank you. Jeez. So John Cusack has been associated to being this like man in black, like Jesus Christ figure in multiple movies.
Sure.
Don't need to go into it. But his other friend is Nick, which is a normal word associated for like
the devil.
The devil, correct. Thank you. Oh, look at that. Hey, thank you for supporting us, Star Wars Santa.
Yeah, Saint Nick, same thing, because Santa
Saint
sees
Nick,
everybody,
right,
but nobody
that was
sees
an
Santa,
accident.
because Santa's an anagram for Satan, Saint Nick.
Yeah. There's a lot of connections between Satan and that was like, because he's really like a frightening, person, like follow my rules or else, you know, you have to be good. I'm watching you all the time. I know your deepest desires. I know what presents you want for Christmas.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
there's
the first,
yes.
I thought the first squirrel was the squirrel after the time machine. because that's, but you're saying that the first squirrel actually starts after he commits suicide.
Yeah, the squirrel is everything. So the squirrel in this movie, the squirrel is like the Kleepo. Like he's an influencer who's an alien. So in the same way that the Gray's Almanac referenced the Grays, like see the videos of Joe Alexander, right? So
Barely Human 11.
Barely Human 11, yeah. To Back to the Future predicts 9/11. So like his other videos about Back to the Future, and so like as far as what he goes to with the Grays. And this also has to do with the Chernobyl thing. So the Chernobyl connects right in because makes an argument. Joe Alexander makes an argument with Roswell being related to in Back to the Future. So like it's crazy. So he pukes all over the squirrel. First of all, I want to point out the bear. Because as long as we're just emphasizing like the Shining correlation here as well. Like when they first roll up to the hotel, to the lodge, he makes this Shining reference. What is it? You have the screenshot earlier. So there's the bear.
I have. Yeah, I think that's towards the end here. He basically says like, I can already tell you what's going to happen. One of us is going to write a novel, and then Lou is going to become an axe murderer.
Yeah. Yeah. But so Lou is Jack, right? So Lou is dead.
I'm going to make a prediction right now. One of us is going to start writing a novel, and then we all get snowed in, and then Lou's going to axe murder all of us.
Right. There you go. So like, so they're setting it up right when they pull up. So this is the context and this is the subtext, because what follows it, you know, in the first place is that this is Lou's like death trip. Like this whole movie from the point where he kills himself at the beginning, and it starts out with that squirrel. And so, you know, this is so crazy. Like you've seen The Gray with Liam Neeson, right? Like yeah. I picked up on the subtext of The Gray, which is the same subtext as The Shining, which is the same subtext as this, which is also Jacob's Ladder as well. You know, so which is that in The Gray you have the wolves are actually playing the Kleepo, which are in a sense like they're, you know, they could be demons or angels depending on how you look at it, because the wolves are actually trying to liberate Liam Neeson, who was suicidal, from this purgatory. So everyone died in the plane crash, and some of the people aren't ready to go, right? And so they're fighting for their survival in this in-between realm. And so very similar idea. The squirrel is a variable that exists that proves that this isn't really the past. This is a Bardot. So the fact that when he says, I know that squirrel, that's a magic squirrel, that's what that's pointing to. He's bet on the game and he loses. This is not what it was in the past. Did he change the past? Like, is any of this freaking real? No, it's a dream, right? And even in the second Hot Tub Time Machine, they refer back to this. Note the bear. Like, if you know The Shining, you know that the bear is going down on the guy in the final sequence of the film. Which is
actually in the book, there's more of a description on what's going on. It's like a party, and the guy dressed up as a bear is gay, so he takes the other guy off to the side, and he's performing, you know, sexual pleasures on the guy, and then Wendy comes up the stairs and he looks up, is what you see in Kubrick's version. But so there is a homosexuality connotation between the bear and like the gay culture also.
Well, so it's also, for what Kubrick did with it, it's Russia. And so, like, it's a play on, you know, in Dr. Strangelove, according to Kubrick, same thing, where he acknowledged a subtext that exists. There's somebody wrote Kubrick this letter about Dr. Strangelove, and he basically acknowledges to the guy that you nailed it, where he says that the whole thing is a sexual allegory from beginning to end, meaning that first scene in Dr. Strangelove, when they're fueling up the ship in midair, that is a sexual metaphor. The whole thing with the bodily fluids, with the Russians, the communist plot, that's speaking to sexual repression. And
Russia
so
and the bear obviously connected, but
Russia,
then there's also the Chernobyl drink, the speed. I'm saying it different than you, but we're talking about the same thing.
We are, yeah.
And then so in the hot tub, they all take off their pants and they're like, get in the hot tub, and the guy's like, isn't that kind of like gay or whatever? There's like this whole idea of like gay Stargate, which it's a gay Stargate. And then
Right, but it's also that Russia and America are being related to as having this sexual frustration, which the end of Doctor Strangelove is that they finally get it on, and it's because this is Kabbalistic. I've seen a rabbi speak to this at the Jewish Museum in San Francisco for a Kubrick exhibit, where so this is known, like the klipot, they mirror Tetragrammaton, they're imitating it. And so all Doctor Strangelove is showing you is a reversal of the creative functions taken to be about destruction. So what would be creative becomes destructive. So that's like what The Shining is doing. That's what this is. So as far as I can tell, it's like that squirrel, that viral squirrel, was named Peanut. You know, the klipot are the shells and the husks around holiness. They related that it's a nut. It's the shell that surrounds the nut.
That's what it said. That's what you're implying, is that because of Peanut, like Biff has changed the timelines. Like
it's in a causal principle, right? So when we're talking about causality with sync, it's not the same. It's just this is coexisting parallels. It's in the non-linear timeline. That's what Back to the Future and Hot Tub Time Machine speak to, is the non-linear nature of things, right?
And of course, they're totally connected because of Crispin Glover, and because he is their rubric of like the grandfather paradox, right?
Right.
Which is explicitly like covered in Back to the Future. So the whole connection of Glover being there is like 120% like set in stone, an intentional Easter egg. What's weird though is like before Crispin Glover, before 2012, some people had associated this scene with Crispin Glover being associated to like Galactic Center. And it's I like I say, like it depends. Without Peanut, the story changes post Peanut. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like the significance of what they're talking about changes as you go further down the timeline.
Yes, totally. Yeah. Jesus
I don't
Christ.
like messing with, like, some people like messing with like current events. And I remember that you remember who Mike Cleland is? The owl synchronicity UFO guy.
Yeah, sure.
He had this big popular post that had to do with how like Planet of the Apes, Rosemary's Baby, and You Might Need to Help Me, the other one that was 2001: A Space Odyssey, all came out on top of each other, dealing with the evolution of like monkey, man, great alien, right? That's right. And then he had referenced that back to other media like The Twilight Zone, and then had associated that with
that was Christopher Knowles.
No, that was Cleland. Well, I mean, Knowles does that all the time. Like they take like very popular things that happen in current events and associate them to movies. And
right, I just remember the Secret Sun article that had the Twilight Zone episode To Serve Man, that it was connecting that to Planet of the Apes and 2001: A Space Odyssey. They're the same location, right? So like in was it Utah, where they have that lake in Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite? So the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey has the same lake that Charlton Heston lands in at the beginning of Planet of the Apes. So yeah, there's so many correspondences, cryogenic space travel, all this stuff in both films. Yeah, so it's his right arm. I was wondering about that, which arm it was. So it's mercy, you know. So you have Chesed and you have Gevurah. It's his mercy is removed in the wrong timeline. So you get that, yeah.
Well, I was saying I took way too many pictures of the sunglasses, but the sunglasses freaked me out because they look blurred to take out the camera, and it makes them like otherworldly, like they're time travelers, like Terminator and stuff like that. Kind of it's like a symbol of a superhero or a person who knows what others don't know, like a man in black. And then let's see, this is the Nick, that's Star Wars Santa, so we know that that's our endpoint,
right? So that humiliation ritual with the squirrels that the television set is talking about, like we see that play out in the movie. That brief view of those squirrels kind of sets up what the rest of the film is kind of about. And then Alf, the alien, Olive, you know, the
There's
fool.
a lot of David Bowie like Easter eggs. There's music by David Bowie, and then there's the MTV commercial.
Right. Keeping in mind, David Bowie's Space Oddity was played during the Apollo 11 launch, another shining connection, right?
Well, yeah. Plus, there's the whole like Philip K. Dick and Bowie having to do with like time loops and Valis and being associated with movies with secret symbols in them. Because Mother Goose, the character who basically is like a movie star trying to create a savior baby, who's like encoding those messages within the movies that he's making by using symbols. Like, it's kind of weird that they're kind of kicking off, but these are very Philip K. Dick ideas, right? The whole time traveling.
Right.
Like Philip K. Dick could have written this book.
Well, it's also, remember our last conversation talking about The Shining, you have to get drunk to go back in time in this movie. And so like the idea, remember discussing the amethyst and as protection against drunkenness and all this kind of stuff. Like, so there's that element too, big time. And Dionysus and that Bacchus, that whole discussion that we had is very applicable here. Like they set it up in Hot Tub Time Machine that now we're going into the subtext of The Shining, and it's meeting the subtext of Back to the Future. And so, you know, it's very interesting that you have, you know, Johnny from freaking Karate Kid is making the bet with Lou on the way that this game plays out, which immediately, if you know Back to the Future 2, it invokes Donald Trump. So it's like, and then it's the variable happens to be this squirrel. Like it's so
who do
bizarre.
You got your bet on? But yeah, but it also is like redeeming Johnny in a way. But
he says it. He goes, he's not such a bad guy.
Right.
You know, I thought
because the other guy, like Johnny's going to make him, you know, give the other guy a blowjob again. The whole shining gay Stargate thing.
And then, Dr. Strangelove. Dr. Strangelove is about sexual frustration between Russia and America, as though it's this homosexual thing. Same thing happened with, you know, Kubrick was going to do Josephine and Napoleon, and then dropped the project 3 months before production started for the Dino De Laurentiis Napoleon film, which has every, I mean, this is another whole conversation, but it has every indication that Kubrick contributed to that script, because that script of Waterloo contains the exact same subtext as Dr. Strangelove, where the Duke of Wellington and Napoleon have this unspoken homoerotic, like, sexual frustration thing going on. If you pay attention to that movie closely, you can see that it's embedded throughout the whole thing. So there's another like level of psychological subtext that's happening. So you can see that happening with this movie as well. And it seems to be, we're seeing Lou's hopes and fears, because this is his evil reincarnation death trip cycle, right? Just like in, like, when he says that Lou is going to kill us all, he's literally like connecting the archetypes of what happens with Jack to what is happening with Lou, because that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, here I'm going to read a little bit of our communique that happened earlier. It says, absolutely, it is the butterfly effect. They have to walk in the same footsteps. This is a Valis movie referencing Philip K. Dick 100. And then I said, Crispin Glover is 100 here, or 100% here, because of the grandfather paradox. But there's the sticker. The sticker is not on the laptop. It's on the stash box with all the drugs in it. Hidden on the stash box is the squirrel, like, Easter egg. There's like a little bit of a, but see, like I said, the mythology in Norse mythology, the squirrels would run up and down the trees to give messages from the gods to humans. Like, they're the messengers, so to speak.
That's a thing. That's fascinating. I'd love to know any other symbolism that you might have on the squirrel.
Yeah, the squirrel is it's kind of like a very mercurial symbol. Like the squirrel is sort of like a messenger between, like, they're kind of gossipers. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because they sit up in the they sit up in the trees, and they in Norse mythology, everything's on this world tree. and the lower worlds are connected by this tree trunk, right? Where the squirrel is what runs up and down that tree.
What is that tree called again? I forget.
Ah, dude, I can't pronounce any of those damn things.
Right. It's okay. But yeah, so there's the point that the squirrel ran across the stage at Kamala's concession speech before she started speaking.
Thing. The squirrel interrupts the play. Squirrel in the play. Hitler becomes president, which is something they say.
They say that, yeah.
They say that in Hot Tub Time Machine. He's like, we could fuck up if we're not doing everything exactly how we're supposed to, or did it the last time, then Hitler could become president. But that's the thing, bro.
Right. So the media was literally going crazy saying that he's literally Hitler about Trump. So which is you know, what's his name? I can't think right now. Biff Tannen.
Right. Biff Tannen becomes president in the altered timeline. Like
that's it.
Because of the Gray's Almanac or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Hold on. Okay, what is this?
And so what does he do that he gives Johnny? Because Johnny is also Trump. So this is the thing from Karate Kid. So he says about Johnny that, oh, he's not such a bad guy. I gave him tips for games in the future. So he's literally giving him, in a sense, the Gray's Almanac again.
He's giving him the Gray's Almanac,
but he's giving it to Johnny.
Like gave him the equivalent to bet on.
Yeah, because it was like the blonde-haired kid from the Karate Kid. So there's videos of those guys in Cobra Kai talking about this viral video about the Karate Kid, where actually who is the bad guy? Because we're trying to, you would think that it's that is Johnny, but in fact it's Daniel. So what the hell? So yeah, there you go. Peanut, the nut. Clepo,
Yggdrasil,
the squirrel.
Squirrel is the world tree.
Yeah. I mean, it's so bizarre. Yeah. What the hell?
But it's even referencing Peanut the squirrel, like
straight up, like this is in the current zeitgeist. So I'm ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, squirrel on the play.
Squirrel in the play. Squirrel in the play. Okay, squirrel in the play. Let's go to the time machine. Back to the Future. Donald Trump. Don Draper's second wife is the woman Nick Weber Agnew has sex with in the bathtub. What is that? You wrote that.
Oh yeah.
Don Draper's second wife.
Yeah, from Mad Men is the woman that he's in the bathtub with. Just take from that what you will. But yeah.
Oh, but whoa, the shining bathtub thing makes so much sense now too, because the old woman in the thing is in the bathtub. So
right, and that he stops himself like Jack does, even though he's not necessarily stopping himself for the same reason, but maybe he is because she's now older and a whole different thing, right? So he's in the past, so she's one thing. So in what happens in The Shining in that scene is very Back to the Future in room 237, because he's with the young woman and then she turns into the old woman, which is a time shift, right?
They also talk about different things they could do for future, like making Twitter, which is weird because if you kind of think about it, Twitter plays a big role in this election, right? So the fact that they're sitting there saying, and they say we could mix Twitter with Viagra.
Right.
Because they're saying, what can we do? What if we're stuck in the 80s this whole time?
Right.
So, well, we could come up with things that we know is going to be popular in the future, which is what they give to Johnny, right? But they talk about specifically Twitter, like creating Twitter, which has been contributed to the unfiltered social media of Elon Musk design, who is basically a running partner.
To get elected the first time. Like, would Trump have even been able to do what he did without Twitter? Like, that was one of the key avenues that made that all possible, because people were looking to Twitter to kind of go beyond what they were getting from the media. So if all you had was media narratives, who knows how things would have played out? It was the conversations, you know. I mean, what is The Shining about but isolation, right? They're isolated. They're snowed in. Right. This movie is as pointed out here, is all about reconnection. So it's the friends reconnecting. Lou's big thing in his life was that he felt isolated. That's why he kills himself. And then in his death trip, he's bringing his friends all back together. So he's no longer isolated, but he goes to
fixing the problems of his past.
Right.
And then discovering that he has a kid.
Yeah, and the lodge used to be this thriving, great place. Like, this place was home of the jet set before anyone knew what the jet set was in The Shining, right?
That's interesting because of the relationship between Jack and Danny, right? The whole like cannibalistic child pornography, with the playgirl that's in The Shining and whatnot. There's this whole incestual idea that is basically presented front row and center when the bald guy in Hot Tub Time Machine's trying to touch his like son's penis and stuff. Like he's trying to have a threesome. That's you're right, because that turns out Lou's dad. You're right. So further emphasis on Lou being the same archetype as Jack, which makes that kid Danny, right? And then I'm talking over here about Daniel's son and Johnny, and it's Johnny. Jack is John, surname, right? So literally, like, Jack Nicholson is Johnny, right? In this weird way, like it's Daniel's son and Johnny, Danny in Karate Kid. Then it's Johnny is Jack. That's so freaking weird. Kubrick, I don't know Kubrick equals Golden Bough always is what you sent me, and then you say Russian interference, Bear, Strange Love, Lou is dead. This is all important. And then I sent you Red Dawn, and you said Red Dawn, Red Bull, which is the Chernobyl drink.
Yeah. It's play on Red Bull.
I say, woo, Wolverine. It's an energy drink. It's Monster Energy drink. Book of Revelations, Wormwood, Chernobyl, Wormwood. Yes.
Yeah, yes. Chernobyl means wormwood, and in have you ever seen that film called Naked? I don't know if you ever saw that, but the point in that film where they went completely off script, where the guy's having that interaction with the security guard, and he actually says his actual trip on the Book of Revelation, and he says wormwood will fall from the sky. He's quoting the book, and he says, "Do you know what the translation is for Chernobyl? It's freaking wormwood." And so wormwood is an ingredient.
Wormwood will fall and poison the waters of the earth. So again, it's poison. It's like doubling down on the poison thing. And it's weird because they start getting naked for the tub, and the kid's like, I don't want to get in the tub with a bunch of guys. And then they show the tub, and then there's beer bottles everywhere. And it's really like, where did the beer bottles come from? They just got in the tub.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So well, this is the point, is that everything from the point where Lou kills himself at the beginning is Lou's death trip. So it doesn't freaking matter. There are no real rules. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's all because it's the Klepo mirroring tetragrammaton. So anything can be anything, you know?
Get him a body bag, Blaine. Yeah, they use the line, get him a body bag, from Karate Kid, when the guys like, when they're making the bet to like hint at the fact that it's Johnny who's playing the guy who's making the bet.
That's right. Yeah. And then you're like, you think he's the bad guy, but then you're like, who's the bad guy? Lou's the bad guy. Lou is Jack.
So yeah, the Chernobyl thing is like kind of mimics it being sent into the hot tub to send them back in time, kind of mimics the Mr. Fusion or whatever in the back of the DeLorean. Like at one part it's using plutonium, and when he's in the future, it's using like Miller Lite, because he's just using the chemical whatever. You know what I'm talking about. And then after I say that, you say Trump equals the Red Scare.
Right. Similar, or the Satanic Panic or anything like that, right? Where you have cancel culture, you know, but the Red Scare is like, they're still continuing. It's all of the,
well, it is the Red Scare, considering the Russian thing, the whole Russian thing. I don't like calling it a hoax.
Is the red versus the blue. It's the Gevura versus the Chesed, and the whole movie ultimately at the same time
Red one
has to do with the restoration of Crispin Glover's missing arm of mercy. So he's lost the mercy, and this is reflected as Lou's trip. Like, what is going on with Lou? Because he's going through the process of like Jacob's ladder. Like, according to this, looking at your palm, you're already dead. So, like, I mean, you got to understand, like, Jacob's Ladder is Adrian Lin. Like, he did the remake of Lolita. Like, he incorporated Full Metal Jacket and Lolita. Like, you know what I'm talking
Red
about?
Donald.
Like,
Orange, Agent Orange. People call Donald Agent Orange.
sure. Yeah. So yeah, and you remember the premise of the Red Dawn is these guys are isolated. They go off on their own and then they come back and the Russians have taken over. So that guy who's basically like, you know, I don't know. I haven't seen Hot Dog in a while or any of these ski resort movies, but he's like, there's a South Park episode about it. Gonna need a montage. Like that guy, that guy's playing like that 80s character who's like, whatever, man. Like you think, like, when the first time that I watched Hot Tub Time Machine, I thought that this thing was going to culminate with a skiing competition because that was the classic 80s scenario.
Yeah.
Like, there's a few of them, you know what I mean? Ski school, or skis, whatever it was, you know. But yeah, so yeah, Crispin Glover is crucial. Like, it's almost like, it's so funny because Crispin Glover wouldn't do Back to the Future 2. He had serious beef with Steven Spielberg that most people don't know the full depth of. I got privy to that relatively recently and it kind of blew my mind. Oh, are you glitching over there? What's happening?
Yeah, I'm glitching. My camera keeps cutting in and out, but it's fine. My audio is not like leaving me.
Never even seen this shape of what's happening with your screen before.
Right, it's like Minecraft or something. I don't know
what's going on
it's
with you,
back
man.
from the 80s, bro.
Okay. So it's back from the 80s. Okay. Oh man, a lot of references going on. What color is Michael Jackson? You know, that's how Nick determines that he's actually in the past when they say that Michael Jackson is black and not white, right?
Right, because there's like this whole realization when they're in the ski lounge with the David Bowie and then Alf. I took a snapshot of Alf because I know he's kind of like important to you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Alf is the golden bough. So Alf is Aleph. It's how you spell out, like, alien life form, but like Aleph spelled out is Aleph Lamed Pei, which is Alf, ALF, right? So like the, you know, Aleph. And so Aleph corresponds to the fool. And so Alf is the outsider. The fool archetype or fool would challenge the king and you know, would kill the king, or the king kills himself, depending on the tradition of the Golden Bough. This is why like, you got to understand all the context. Like, Kubrick gave the head of Warner Brothers a set of the Golden Bough in the 1970s, bugged him every week for a year about reading it. The executive says, I don't have time for mythology. Kubrick says, this isn't mythology, this is your life. How so? So this is because, you know, what we see at Bohemian Grove is a reversal of the Golden Bough ritual, where instead of killing the king and allowing for that sacrifice to like trim back the tree, to ensure the longevity of the kingdom, they have this hubris to say, we're going to kill the challenger of the king as an effigy and set it on fire, and then say Midsommar sets us free, and then we basically saying we have another year in power. Is a super arrogant thing to maintain the power structure. And so in this case, you have in the show Alf, you have Alf is literally that outsider. There's qualifications that he has to meet. He has to be from a completely outside land. Well, in this case, what is more outside land than a freaking alien? But the irony is that they should turn the whole world on its head, like the outsider would traditionally do in the Golden Bough ritual. But in this case, they have to hide him in the garage because the government would kill him and do whatever they do, you know. And so that's the joke of Alf, is that he is this archetypal fool, but he can't do anything with it, you know. So it's just like, it's a tragedy, right? But then, you know, you see
the Golden Bough scandalized the British public when the Golden Bough scandalized the British public with when first published, as it included the Christian story of the resurrection of Jesus in its comparative study.
They had to remove a chapter from it.
Invited an agnostic reading of the Lamb of God as a relic of pagan religion.
this book is enormous, right? And that was one section of the book that was removed for years by the church, because you only had that first edition and included the stuff about Christianity. And so they took it as blasphemous or whatever for them to make this argument that Christianity was the archetypes that are embedded in Christianity actually came from the ancient world. And so like that whole thing of the 12 plus 1, you know, like that so he made arguments for that in the Fraser in the original book from Cambridge, you know. I mean, he traveled all over the world to get this stuff, you know, but yeah, they had
controversy generated by the work and its critical reception amongst other scholars. The Golden Bough inspired much of the creative literature of the period. The poet Robert Graves adapted Fraser's concept of the dying king sacrificed for the good of the kingdom to the romantic ideas of the poet's suffering for the sake of his muse goddess. As reflected in his book on poetry, rituals, and myth, The White Goddess, 1948. William Butler Yeats refers to Fraser's thesis in his poem, Sailing to Come Sail Away, Come Sail Away. The horror writer H.P. Lovecraft's understanding of religion was influenced by the Golden Bough. And Lovecraft mentions the book in his short stories, The Call of Cthulhu. T.S. Eliot acknowledged indebtedness to Fraser in his first note to his poem, The Wasteland. Oh, well, which is humongously.
It influenced everybody. It influenced Jim Morrison heavily. It influenced Stanley Kubrick, like I was saying. It also influenced Sigmund Freud's work, Totem and Taboo, and as the work of Freud's student Carl Jung. So Carl Jung drew upon it as well. It's just, you know, this is hugely influential, but it's not just. It's to understand why, because we're living in this, and we're living with the repercussions of us not doing what is prescribed by the ancients in the anthropological recognition that way back when they had these certain safeguards to ensure that a kingdom could endure as long and as well as possible, and so which included sacrifice from the royalty. And so the royalty now doesn't want to allow for any.
I mean, this has a lot to do with like JFK and stuff.
This is the basis for all of it. This is what is playing out in every way. So what Trump is basically because of these people's arrogance, this is the version of this archetype that was allowed to come through the cracks. So they set him up. We know this, like, you know, he's referred to as a Pied Piper candidate in the WikiLeaks from John Podesta's email, where he outlined the strategy for 2016, that they would prop up, they would instruct the media to substantiate him as a viable candidate, and so that they could use him as a scapegoat the whole time to say, oh, but you don't want that. So basically what it is that, you know, they put the public in this position where it's like, well, if you if you don't take this, then this is what you'll get. And it was a threat. And so they've used that same tactic or that same strategy going all the way back, and they continue to do it, and it ended up biting them in the ass. So, you know, because it was what they had. So anyway, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, just look at myself, so I didn't know. Yeah,
because there's nothing to look at over here, bro.
Right. So you know, Trump plays the some version of that archetypal fool. You know, that's kind of what he is. So, but yeah, how does this relate to Hot Tub Time Machine? This would right. So, you know, this is Lou is already dead. Right. So Lou is looking for redemption. This whole thing is about redemption, that the people need to be redeemed through this ritual, that we're going to miss the mark. And the way to set things right is to allow for some degree of sacrifice. Lou is completely pleasure focused on himself. He's like, you know, what does he shout out at the sky when they're skiing, where he's like, I want to fuck anything that moves or whatever. Yeah. He represents like what in culture is this just completely focused on one's own satisfaction. He's only all about himself, and then he's also feels so isolated and so disconnected. And so it all comes down to like this whole idea of redemption. It's like, you know, his friends are like his lifeline, and he continues even in his death trip to like cut himself off while blaming others for his own actions. you know what I mean? So like it's like society at large is basically doing that, you know.
You
You there?
say through Trump. Yes, I'm here. I'm just
Yeah.
having camera issues, man.
Okay.
So, but I mean, like to be honest, the opinions of David Charles Plate are not necessarily the opinions of Meta Egg.
Right. That works. Yeah, but you have to say the same thing for yourself. You could be like, the opinions of Will Morgan are not necessarily the opinions of
Meta
the
Egg.
show that he's on. Right.
Yeah. All right, I'll try again. Okay, so I don't know. I enjoyed that. Do you think that number 2 is worth watching or no?
Number 2 has certain parts of it that are like sync winks back to the things that to take a particular note of in the first one, including like the bear showing up. Like the bear is significant, right? He goes back in time with them. You notice that?
Because he's in the Reagan does too, in a way. Like,
well, Reagan was president at the time. What do you mean? They wore the
well,
mask.
Reagan's in the hot tub too. Before, like, there's a scene there when they're in the. There's a time before they're back in the past, and the bear is there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the bear goes back in the past with them. But
you know, The Tripper, filmed in Santa Cruz, actually. The Tripper is a movie about a guy who is a serial killer who wears a Reagan mask while he uses an axe as his weapon of choice to kill hippies. And but point being, you know, that he was supposed to be he was released by Reagan from a mental institution way back when, and then he continues to be a crazy axe murderer. So it connects Reagan to The Shining in a really weird way. But yeah. It's also got Pee Wee Herman in it, or Paul Rubin.
Paul Rubin, in the Tripper.
Yeah, I met Paul Rubin the night of the premiere when I was driving a cab, and I picked up his friend who was in some show. He was in some show. He's in the sequel to Pee Wee's Big Adventure, not Big Top Pee Wee, but the one that Netflix did as the guy in New York. So I drove that guy around. I believe the night that he met Pee Wee. Yeah, that's a whole story. But yeah, it was anyway.
The night I met Pee Wee.
Yeah, I got a whole story there. I don't need to necessarily share it on online like this. But
well, why not? Are you scared?
Private elements that maybe I've shared it before, but I don't know if I.
I get what you're saying.
Well,
you need to go
away. Paul Rubin's passed away, and like since then, I'm not as apt to just be like, oh, haha, I know something very personal about Pee Wee. But yeah. But anyway, I feel like there's more that we're missing here.
Oh, I know what to do. Hold on. This should work. This should work.
For your camera.
Yeah. Okay, you say you know what we need to do?
What's that? Oh, no, I mean just all these. You got a new camera or what? What's happening? Okay.
It's always with you. There's always some problem with the cameras or the sound or rolling blackout.
I got my shit taken care of over here, man. I
don't know, man. There's a lot of attention. Whenever I have a video, there's a lot of attention that comes with you. So I don't know.
Well, maybe it's like a Mercury retrograde where you're like, I don't know, is it me or is technology not working outside of me? Yeah.
Out of the two of us, who do you think they are watching more?
Mercury, I can't. How do I?
Mercury, that's the symbol of Mercury on your arm.
Yeah. I'm saying I am a Mercury retrograde for you when I come on your thing. Yeah.
Oh, so you're just like total retrograde.
Yeah. It seems like it's just the technology, but I'm having an influence here. Yeah.
So okay, let's take Hot Tub Time Machine off and let's think of another movie. And then I've got to get off and do something about my camera, man. I'm gonna have to find a new camera.
Okay.
But what other movie should we watch? We had one once before, but we forgot. I'm gonna write this down. Come on, On you. It's your choice.
On me? Oh boy, I don't know, man. What is a super sinky movie? Jeff Who Lives at Home? No, I don't know. Can I talk? Can I riff on that for that long? I don't know. I like the ones that are really meta, you know. Kubrick films work well for that. But like, yeah, I don't know. Where'd you go?
Well, that's it. Why don't you do me a favor and say, hey, thank you for joining Meta Egg. Please subscribe.
Thank you for joining Meta Egg.
Thank you for joining Meta Egg.
Okay, come again. Sorry, is that not appropriate to talk like that anymore? I don't know. Whoopi Goldberg would say it's all right. I think I saw that in that movie about Apu.
Well, listen, man, thanks for, I'm sorry that there were so many problems with the camera and everything, but thank you for showing up. It was a great idea. I like that movie. Like, and like I say, there was a special charge in the air just because of like the time period. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't have really worked. To me, at least I wouldn't have gotten, I would have seen all the Easter eggs and all of that nonsense, but it wouldn't have worked the same way had it not corresponded with like fucking Peanut or whatever.
Right. There's also this weird, like, I'm like, everything comes together. So like the Chernobyl meets like Doctor Strangelove meets like what the hell is happening in the, don't they make a reference to nuclear war beyond that? Like, oh, he says, I'm gonna go nuclear, right? The guy,
well, there's Red Dawn. There's a lot of like messaging about the Red Scare the whole time.
Yeah. It's and
I mean, that's just, it is what it is. Like that period of the 80s, it makes total sense. But I mean, it's kind of, with the energy drink being named Chernobyl and everything, it's a little bit over the top with the red idea.
So okay, let's look at this poster here. So in this, and then Chevy Chase connects in somehow. I don't know. Go Fletch, Chevy Chase. But like that squirrel with the energy drink, and then that's vodka.
Yeah, I think, or just an empty bottle.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was what the thumbnail is. The same thing. It's the Chernobyl drink, the bottle of liquor, plus a squirrel. But then it's like plus divided by time machine. I don't know. It's like it doesn't make any. So
it is divided by time machine
plus this
divided by hot tub equals a time machine. So it's telling you that there's these components. One
is one of the components.
It's wormwood, and I guess that's vodka, right?
Well,
which is Russian.
The poison of Babylon, let's call it.
Which is Russian. Russian.
Vodka, yeah.
And the clephotic squirrel and the heat of the hot tub. What is, okay, so check this out. Like nuclear, like what is a nuclear power plant do? Like more than anything else, it's boiling water to a degree that's like just crazy.
Holy shit, yes.
So they're literally like, so that's why it all has to do. So, and what powers the DeLorean to go back to the future in Back to the Future 1? Right. So he had stolen the plutonium, right? So to go back to the future, right? And so later it ends up being he can just use trash.
Right, like the Chernobyl energy drink or alcohol. It's Miller Lite, but that brings up like the Golden Dawn. But because wasn't that one of the things,
Golden Dawn?
Golden Dawn was like they drink their pee or whatever. Like
in the Golden Dawn, you're talking about the occult European order of the Golden Dawn. Is that? Or
yeah.
What do you think?
Like
because there was the Golden Dawn was the Russian thing too, right? There was the Russian Golden Dawn, wasn't this? And there was like people were getting confused because you're like, you go to look up Golden Dawn and you get this occult order, but then you also get some Russian group. Like, what was the deal? And I'm thinking Red Dawn, Golden Dawn, something's going on here, man. So there's a Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn, but what about the other Golden Dawn? Put in Russia. The other Golden Dawn wasn't what
swear
it
to
was
God, there's
Russia.
something about them drinking their pee. Like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn
People
was
say that the golden shower or whatever. I don't care.
the
But like, and
golden
also
shower. Yeah, that's
Trump,
not a
Trump
thing.
with the golden shower with Obama or whatever with the Russian prostitutes, right? So, but yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
look at that. Yeah, a far right neo-Nazi organization in Greece. Okay, has connection with Russia and extreme right wing. Yeah, see, there's a sync web there. I'm just like, what the hell is going on? So,
which emphasizes Greek nationalism, anti-immigration, and anti-EU sentiments. Aligns with some of the key themes of Russian, what is that? Eurasianism, Eurasia, like
right. So I just want to go to like, another level to this is just like, what is our response to Russia now, but to isolate them, right? They provide all the grain for the Middle East. Like Russia, like, with this idea of like diplomacy, like we had supposedly come out of the other side of the Red Scare. And we were like, you had Oliver Stone met with Putin to watch Dr. Strangelove together. Like you can watch them watching it together. Like that was a thing not that long ago. So this whole idea of like, well, this was also a big part of the programming of COVID was we're all in this together, but the right thing to do is isolate and to be completely disconnected from everybody in your actual connection. Like if somebody meets with Putin now as an American, anybody, everybody freaks out like, oh, you're talking to that person. When really it's like, well, shit, if you're trying to avoid war, like wouldn't communication be like helpful? We've gone to this place now in culture where somehow it's the worst thing you can do is actually communicate with somebody directly if they're your enemy. You got like, or they're being presented as your enemy. So like, I mean, you could say anything somebody could point out. They go, oh, but Putin is this and Putin is that. They may be right, but at the same time, what do you like? I don't know, man. Like, what is your way of dealing with somebody that's your enemy? Is it just to completely?
I go off my philosophy in a lot of ways has always been to like go against what my philosophy is, and I kind of picked that up from like Robert Anton Wilson, where he's like, spend like 15 minutes a day reading propaganda from the opposite party that you oppose, so to speak. And like I do that from time to time, but that keeps me like, I mean, what is that? On the fence is what they call that. Does that mean I'm too liberal?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I'm just relating it to what happens in the Hot Tub Time Machine is that Lou, it feels detached from these people, from his life, and like he wants to connect with them. And yet at the same time, he's detaching from them even in the midst. Like he's not acting as a good friend to them, And so that's like the whole thing is around him reconciling his soul and everything, So yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, there's something.
Somebody's been pushing for Jim Carrey shows a lot lately.
Truman Show, Jim Carrey. Yeah, well, if we're going to talk Jim Carrey, I mean, we could go through his whole career, just like how he is. I mean, this was early Sinkhole days.
Yeah.
Where it was just,
I mean,
like,
that would be the thing to do is like, we just pick a Jim Carrey movie and just do a walkthrough on it. And then you could talk about,
or we just pick an actor and go through a walkthrough on them. I think that would be better for us in terms of our own flexibility. Like, who's the actor that we're going to focus on? You would probably go Jennifer Connelly or Jim Carrey or whatever, because they're so familiar to zero in on somebody.
Well, I study how actors like relate to each other. So I always like to go like, there's multiple, it's like bubbles of actors have like symbols that surround them. And then when other actors who have those same symbols, they kind of like join up in movies. And it's like this Venn diagram almost, with like little, it's like circles within a circle. So I don't like necessarily just following one actor. I like following one movie, or at least for these. Like right now, I just want to kind of introduce the idea of the movie, because if you get too complicated, then you'll lose a big part of like the audience, because I mean, it is a lot of work. Like we've done a lot of study, David, you and I have been doing this for like a decade. You translate Hebrew, like there's a lot of lead work that we've done that is not necessarily like pop culture common knowledge. And so like I feel like baby steps is how I've kind of tried to like set up the curriculum of MetaEgg. But
yeah, I mean, I could continue talking about Hot Tub Time Machine forever, because like I would go into Philip Petit, or however you say his name, the guy who put that wire between the two towers, and like Back to the Future with the
yeah.
wire. Like, I mean, like the levels of that. Like, I don't know, like I don't know if you saw that sync film with The Walk and Leonard Cohen's Popular Problems. But like I put that together, not even realizing, like I was like going through with the volume in between the vocals, and then was like, wait, I'm hearing Leonard Cohen being sung, because like the girl in the movie is singing Suzanne. Like I'm like, what is like, because he did Bird on a Wire, and so there's a documentary called Man on a Wire that came out before The Walk, you know, in like from showing the what the guy did in the 70s, you know. So like this to me, like him doing this, and including him being unconscious of the symbolic implications, whether he was or wasn't. If he was unconscious, it adds to the profundity, because you know, this is the equivalent of pulling that that branch that is the Golden Bough ritual, because it's challenging the established order. By him doing this, walking back and forth between Jachin and Boaz as he did, like that is literally like challenging the kingdom, you know, like the king and the kingdom are one thing. You know, the health of the king is a reflection of the health of the kingdom. That was so crazy about the sick king with Biden. It was like, can we see the anthropological implications of the ruler being so sickly? Like this is like, this goes back. It means the nation is sick. You know what I mean? Like the nation is freaking deranged. Like we've gotten, it's so bizarre. Yeah.
Walk 2015, 2000.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there was the whole
Cohen's Popular Problems. I have it on the website. It's incredible.
Yeah, but I mean that basically goes. There was an interesting thing that happened to me dealing with Joe Alexander on this, because I didn't have it all. Like I was like, there's something about the way that he's dressed in this movie that relates to Back to the Future. And
yeah, he's in the same outfit.
He's in the Marty
with the leather jacket and the red shirt. Yeah.
But I didn't realize that. And so when I sent that to Joe, Joe was like, oh no, you don't know the half of it. And he sent me the Marty McFly outfit. And it was like, there's like a validation to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, even though I didn't have all of it, Joe did. And so there's like some part of me that feels like that's like confirmation that you're not crazy. You know what I'm saying? And that it's there, and it's not like an interpretation. If two people can see it from two different points of view, but kind of translate the same thing, that's potent. That's it. That's important. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
David.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Listen, man, I'll hit you up after this, and we can powwow a little bit and then plan. But I think an hour is all that I asked of you. So I'm just going to cut it off there. And then, you know, I appreciate it. Like all of these, just keep in mind that I can go back through and kind of edit them down a little bit and turn them into other videos. So that, you know, it's not necessarily like too important that we as of this point need to stay like on here for like 3 hours or some shit. That's
okay. Hey, I'm open to talk about Gremlins and Gremlins 2, by the way. That's a good one to go into.
You know what? I think that's a better idea. I'm going to start working on a thumbnail for that, and then I'll hit you back.
Okay, cool. All right.
All right. Thank you guys for watching out there, and we'll see you next MetaEgg. Stay meta, guys. Appreciate it.